Red Skelton was one of the most popular of the early comics in the 1950s. Very kind man. Every day, Red gave his wife a love note, maybe a rose, every day. In other words, Red was doing the same thing that Paul talks about in 1 Corinthians chapter 13. You know, there are a lot of things that Paul wrote about that are intended for the church at large, but one of the best things I can do is to take passages intended for the church at large and apply it to myself personally, and maybe with a smaller group, like with my wife or my husband. For example, in that passage, Paul talks about how love suffers long and is kind. Think how well my marriage would go if I were long-suffering and kind with my spouse. How am I doing on that lately? Now I'm long-suffering with other people, but how long-suffering have I been with my husband or with my wife? Paul says love is not puffed up. You ever see a big turkey or a frog got puffed up? It gets how arrogant it gets. Well, how am I doing with my spouse, my husband or my wife? And do I behave in an arrogant kind of a way with her? Paul says love is not easily provoked. Well, this is holiday time. And ironically, when we're supposed to be cheerful and happy with one another, we can get pretty tense, particularly with my spouse. How much happier would my holiday be and my home life be if all the year I were not easily provoked? Paul says love is not rude. Well, you don't act rudely, shouldn't, with people out in the office or at school. But how rude maybe might I be with my spouse? Let's apply the teachings of the Bible in general for the church, as Paul intends for us to be. But let's do it especially at home.